The Big 12 men's basketball. The top 25 was released. Top 5 include UConn, Purdue, North Carolina, Houston, and Tennessee. Then you have Wisconsin and Duke, KU, Marquette, and Kentucky among the top 10. The rest of the top 25 that includes teams that are about to be or are a part of the Big 12. Arizona, Iowa State, and Texas Tech 11, 12, and 15. Baylor 18. They're in a 3-game slide. More on that at some point today in the show. BYU and Oklahoma 22 and 23, and TCU, who won that dramatic triple overtime game Saturday at the Foster Pavilion, is at number 25. The standings are basically Houston, or Texas Tech, Houston, Iowa State, and then just bloodshed with a lot of 3-3s, 3-4s. And I'm not trying to forget anybody, but it is exactly what we probably expected. And what Houston did to Kansas State, Jerome Tang after the game said, I don't know if I've ever seen a better team defensively. And he came from one that won a national title. It was pretty incredible on defense. But there you are, 8 teams ranked inside the AP top 25 for the first time ever.
Yeah, there's several teams that are really good that are in bad ways right now. Baylor and Kansas are stuck in the mud. Baylor can't close anybody out. They've had significant opportunities to do in these last 3 games. They can go, it's a weird team because they can go shot for shot with the best of them. If that's what the game's going to be, all right. But when it comes down to being the last shot, they haven't been that for the last 3 games.
Because no one, it appears as if they won. Not that Jacoby didn't hit a huge Jacoby Walter that tied the game. It doesn't appear as if they knew who's going or wants to take the shot, in my opinion.
Yeah, and they've kind of ebbed and flowed on defense a little bit. I think they're better than they were earlier in the year at that at that side of it. But yeah, it's kind of weird to watch them because you don't really know what to expect as games get late in it. They also, Jack made this point when we were talking about it, they don't seem to know how to go on a run.
No.
Really go on a run where they, the best Baylor teams under Scott Drew, especially, comparing to the 2021 team.
You can't.
You can't compare it. But just the best teams knew how to go on a 12-0 run. This team doesn't really do that all that well. But they'll trade baskets with you, that's for sure. But they're not shutting you down to the point where it's, a 15-0 run and they've flipped the script.
They don't know how to get the dagger, it seems like to me, at least for right now. And again, Scott Drew said, Craig, on Saturday after the game, sometimes when you're young and you haven't been through the fire, sometimes you got to go through it where you get burned and learn from it. There's plenty of time left, but they are in a 3-game slide.
They are. I think they still are incapable of being able to sweep the leg, like you guys said. I said the other day, they need to watch Karate Kid and the whole sweep the leg part of that, because that's what they're in dire need of being able to do. And there's other things as well, like Paul said, of not being able to go on any effective runs. And just, I understand the whole youth part of this and the whole, you got to get burned sometimes, but man, you got to get out of that fire here pretty quick, man. You're dropping games, and granted, you can say, well, they've lost 3 games by a combined, 5 points, or, whatever kind of things as this stretches out, these close losses, you can kind of say, yeah, well, it was close, or yeah, it was at the buzzer, or yeah, it was in overtime, and that's fine, but it's still 3 straight losses.
No, it's still where you led the game in the last minute or two leading up to the loss.
Yeah, it's still 3 straight losses in conference play, and now you're sitting there and you're looking at a 500 mark, and you screw around and you're going to be in the back half of the Big 12 and below 500. So, yeah, I get it. It's youth, and it's not being able to know how to do this, that, whatever. It's about getting burned a little bit so that you can come out on the other side of it. But you better hope that you come out on the other side of it pretty soon, because you're going to dig yourself a bit of a hole, and it doesn't matter if you lose by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 20, losses are losses. So, yeah, 2 of those on the road, and Kansas State and Texas are good teams, and TCU is a good team. That was obviously an extras, but you got to close a game out here, fellas. This is ridiculous. You had a 5-game win streak that is a saving grace from having 5 losses since back in mid-December. So
they lost to Duke, Michigan State, Kansas State, Texas, and now the loss on Saturday to TCU.
So they had that Michigan State Duke back-to-back and went on a 5-game run, and then now it's been 3 straight just brutal losses for them. So going to UCF here this week, we'll see if they can get a win on the road, but they desperately need one at this point, because 4 straight losses, that's, oh boy, that's getting ugly there. Yeah. So, yeah, that's That's an interesting rankings because it makes me think of the SEC in football, and I'm not trying to say they're the same things because the Big 12 needs to win more national titles, and they have at least done some of that with Kansas and Baylor and Texas Tech played for one 3 years ago. But it is similar in that you have so many good teams that are also beating up on each other that you're kind of in that thing with the top 25 now. If somebody drops out, that you have another team that's ready waiting to jump in there. And so you have an Oklahoma that's sort of sliding right now, but then you have a TCU that jumps into the back half of the top 25 this week. So you're not saying it's going to be like that all the way through, but it does speak to the depth of the league and the respect for the league that you're going to always seemingly have 6 to 8 teams pretty regularly every week in that poll.
3 teams are 5-1, 5-2, 5-2. That's Tech, Iowa State, Houston. Houston, by the way, in Austin tonight against Texas, who went into Provo, probably a little bit worn out after the trips they had to make after the game in Oklahoma. Then they go to Provo and they lose. But listen to this: nine of the teams are 4-3, 3-3, or 3-4. 9 of them, and it just depends on whether or not you're going to keep going above water or you're going to drop below it. Here's a note from Bill Self. Kansas 4-3 start. This is from John Rothstein, covers college basketball. Kansas's 4-3 start in Big 12 play is the worst start to conference play the Jayhawks have had since Bill Self took over as the head coach. Now, he also made a comment after the game that he's not so sure, and I'm not trying to misquote him, about a conference championship is not quite the same because not everybody plays everybody home and away. But 4-3 and Iowa State really good and beat them in Ames with a dagger 3 late in the game to put it away.
Yeah, and they've got to get it right. They've got Houston coming in this weekend. They play Oklahoma State tomorrow night, which they beat them really badly a week and a half ago, but they're just not playing well. Now they get to go back to the Fog, which is always good news for them. And Bill Stuff has some kind of ridiculous stat about teams coming in ranked above Kansas at the Fog. It's different, but bottom line is they've got to get right. And they just, they're not clean like Bill Self teams are normally. They're up and down and rocky, and part of that is just the teeth of the league, but everything kind of comes back to the middle. We'll see if they can get it right. If anybody can, it's them. But they've got to start playing like a Bill Self team. They're not right now.
Paul able to sleep in the house still?
No, I got a story. I've got a story. So I did not realize what had happened. Paul texted me about going to the game Saturday, 3 o'clock tip, TCU Baylor. And there's a certain amount of parking, and I was going to go. And then he was going to go, and then he decided not to go. And then I realized I did not know at the time that Iowa State had beaten Kansas. I had not been completely bunkered in doing some work that I have projects to do before leaving for Vegas. Then I found out what happened. So then I go to the game, and come to find out there is a Mrs. Catalina who wants Bill Self gone. And she's done with him. And I'm like, how can you? So then Baylor loses in triple overtime. I started to leave early. I was going to go to the post game. I'm like, damn, it's 3 hours. It's been like 3 overtimes. And I get a text from Amanda. Baylor lost. Suck it, Baylor. Everybody. And I was like, she went like.
She's the kind of sports fan that in the moment of a loss, everyone it's like a mushroom cloud of it's bad. It's really bad.
Frightening.
Yeah. She was
not just during a loss, when they're down.
Oh no, when they're down. Yeah.
Oh yes. Jack can speak to this because they were losing to Creighton in Fort Worth a couple years ago, and Jack and I were Jack had just come and sat down next to me, and we were talking about the Baylor game that had just happened where they had lost to North Carolina.
In overtime.
And so we're talking about that, and then just out of nowhere, Amanda whips her head around and she goes, Jack, I'm going to need you to be quiet.
I feared for my life.
Okay, well, there we are with that. And so it's,
Well, get your act together, Bill Self, or you're having angry woman on your doorstep.
Paul's going to take Amanda and going to meet her brother, Rami, in Lawrence, Kansas this weekend. Going to maybe do a cut-in or two on either Thursday or Friday with us. They're going to Allen Fieldhouse to watch Houston play Kansas. And this could end it quickly. This could be it. This could be your last week.
Look, I'll hopefully see you guys in Vegas.
Yeah.
That's what.
All right.
yeah.
I have one, believe it or not.